Don't be afraid to write about your failures in your thesis. It's not uncommon for PhD researchers to feel apprehensive about including their failures in their thesis. It's a common human trait to want to brush one's failures under the carpet and keep them out of sight so that no one else knows about them. However, it's important to remember that research is a process filled with a ton of failures, and those failures are necessary steps to reach the end goal. It's in those failures that you learn what to do and what not to do, as well as the best direction to take for your research to be a success. So writing about your failures and the improvements that you made as a result will demonstrate your ability to critically analyze your work and adapt to the challenges. By acknowledging your failures and discussing how you overcame them, you will add depth and nuance to both your research and your thesis, which will make your thesis a more compelling and authentic piece of work because you will be demonstrating your growth and development as a researcher. During my viva, the examiners expressed their delight in seeing that I wrote about my failed experiments in my thesis. And they also told me that they enjoyed reading about my path from failure to success as I progressed in my research. And I think it's because, in fact, I know it's because of this, because they expressed it in so many words, which is that they know, right? Because these are experienced professionals, right? In the academic realm specifically. They know that PhD is it's a tedious kind of endeavor in itself, but it's a process. And you have your idea, your hypothesis, as they say in the academic world, and the path to proving it's right and coming up with some sort of algorithm, solution, whatever it may be, to showcase that your hypothesis was correct, it's a journey. That's why it's called a PhD journey, right? It's a journey where you will have more failures than successes. And so they want to see how you went about dealing with those failures, reacting to them in the sense that, what did you learn, and how did you apply what you learned to the next phase of your research? Did you change direction? And is it because of this failure? Or did you find something else from this failure that told you something that you needed to know about your research? Maybe you're going in the wrong direction. Maybe you are in the right direction, but you just need to tweak the variables or the parameters of, your algorithm or whatever it may be to get to the final solution. They want to see that. It's the same as the hero's journey, essentially, which we see in movies, games, books, everything, where we start with the character who's struggling, suffering, whatever it may be, and then they slowly grow to become the very best, right? Even in sports, we love this. That's why players like Cristiano Ronaldo are so revered, because if you go back to 2003, 2004, where he started off, he was good, but he's not the same level as he is like now, or as he was 5 years ago, right? It's a different breed, and it's that growth, that journey from, I guess, zero to hero, if you want to call it. That's what they want to see. You all enjoy that when you're watching TV shows and movies, that hero's journey, and the examiners, they want to see the same thing, because granted, you're not saving the world from Thanos or anything, but it doesn't matter. They still want to see that progression, because in the viva, it's not just about you proved your thesis was correct. You proved your hypothesis was correct. It's about who are you now compared to who you were at the beginning of your PhD 4 years ago or 6 years ago, depending on how long your PhD program is. Because there should be a difference between who you were then and who you are now. That's growth, right? And they want to see that in how you speak in the viva, how you speak about yourself in the past from a critical point of view, where you willingly say, yeah, okay, I made some mistakes and I learned from them, and this is what I learned, and this is what I've gained from them. Because the end product of a PhD is a thesis, but it's also the researcher, the person who did the PhD. You're also the end product of your PhD. Something I'll talk about more in a separate video, but you are also at the end product of your PhD, and the researchers want to see who came out the other end. Who is the hero? Who started at zero is now the hero. Who are you now? you know, so yeah. So that's why failures are very important to talk about in your research. They can be failed experiments, they can be failed research methods, it doesn't matter. The struggles will be there because it's the nature of a PhD. It's struggle, 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 success at the tail end of the whole thing. So they just want to know how you kind of went through all that emotionally, mentally. It doesn't matter. I mean, I didn't talk about my. To be fair, no, I did mention some, well, not emotional stuff, but more about how I lost my hair during my PhD, which they found. They laughed it off, but it was quite hilarious in some ways because I used it as a joke now, but at the time it sucked. Right, I went bald because of the stress of PhD, basically. So, but it is what it is. You live and you learn, and I guess now I started off the PhD with hair. I finished without hair. Now I have a beard instead. It is what it is. As you can see, I'm laughing about it because I'm over it. I wasn't 3 years ago or 4 years ago when it happened, but I'm okay with it now. It is what it is. I want to stress this. I've mentioned it before, but I want to stress it again just to remind you. The examiners have read more thesis documents than you can imagine because these are experts in their field of research, PhDs, whatever you want to call it. They are literally experts. And they expect you to have made mistakes and failed along the way towards completing your PhD because, if we're being honest, you're a novice. You're a bloody amateur. And there's no way you went from year 1 to year 4, 6, whatever final year it is, and you literally just cruised through and found the answer in one go. That's nonsense. Let's be honest, that's just nonsense. So they want to see those failures because it's part of the process. And I honestly think it will improve your odds of passing your Viva and also just make your Viva, how do I put it? Make your Viva a better experience because it'll become a conversation instead of a question answer interview type. It becomes a conversation because they'll be intrigued by, oh, you failed here. What did you learn? And how did you apply to the next one? Did you apply it? And it's like most of this will just come out naturally, and it becomes a conversation. A very fun one, by the way, because this was my experience. Because initially I only wrote the failures because I just figured it was a good way to tell the story of how I got to my final solution for my research. Because I didn't want to just write about the final solution, because in my mind I was thinking, this was before even my supervisor saw my that section of my thesis, the experiment section. I just thought it made more sense for me to explain how I got to the answer I got to and why I made the decisions I made, because from speaking to other PhD students and I guess postdocs, I think is the right term, they had mentioned about how questions around how you get to your final solution would arise, and if you can't answer them correctly, well, you fail, or you have a struggle. Either you fail or it will be a struggle to walk out of that Viva with a pass. So I figured I might as well just front load this whole thing and just write them down in the thesis at a time. They can read about the failures and the road from hell to heaven. Instead of having to try and ask me and extract that information out of me in the Viva, I figured if I tell them up front, they will come into the Viva with a specific perception of myself and my thesis, and then the conversation will be around what I learned, what my intentions were, and how I felt about these failures, instead of how did you get to this sort of thing. To be fair, there were still questions around why did I choose some of these experiments that end up failing, why I went with those, but I'd already supported them in the thesis as well, so all I had to do was reiterate what I said in the thesis, just face to face. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were just trying to make sure I wrote the thesis, so they'd ask some of those questions just to make sure I wrote the words in the document. And I think it worked out really well. So this is just my advice to you. Take it on board if you want, or you can ignore it if you wish. I think you should take it on board. Write about those failures. They don't make it look bad. They don't. Believe me. It's a good thing. So yeah.